Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands of which we meet today, the peoples of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders, past and present, as well as all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders joining us online today. My name is George Scala from Global Victoria, and today will be a recorded session available on the Global Victoria website, where we have a library of past Victorian e-commerce network briefings, which you can all access. I would like to start off by also acknowledging the support of the Australian Fashion Council and Creative Victoria in promoting today's event. In today's session, we're going to have a look at the world of key opinion leaders, or otherwise known as influencers, in China's market. As a late starter of all things China, I've been fortunate enough to have witnessed the emergence of Chinese influencers and their impact on Australia and Victorian products. The young Chinese consumer is educated, informed, and very well connected. They have taken shopping experience to a completely new level. If you, as a business, are keen to work in the China market, you need to understand how these young consumers think, engage, and research their products, and how the role of KOLs, or the key opinion leaders, or these influencers, impact their buying habits. Today's session will shed a light on the emergence of these KOLs and influencers in China. We hope to inform you just a little bit more on their significance and maybe get you to think a little bit more about your China strategy and how it can impact it going forward. Although today's session is specifically focused on fashion in China, it can be easily related to many other sectors where KOLs are involved. We have 4 speakers for today. We'll be hearing from our Commissioner for Greater China, Brett Stevens. We'll be hearing from Amy Fan, based out of Shanghai, who's with Fashion Zoo. We've got Katie Pratt from Elliatt and from Global Lifestyle Distributors, and we've got DIIDA Papafotiou from DIIDA. This is an opportunity. There'll also be opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation. There is the chat function on the screen. Please put forward your questions and we'll get to them after the session. Before I introduce Brett, I just would like to acknowledge the contribution, particularly from Katie and DIIDA in today's briefing. They are both involved in the retail sector, and as many of us on the line know, they have gone through significant hard times recently, and nonetheless, they have still committed to participating in today's briefing. To both of you, we thank you very much. We have a full program and we'll get started. I'll start off with Brett Stevens, our Commissioner for Greater China. Brett literally just started in August. He has not stopped running till he landed in Shanghai. Brett has been responsible for setting up a number of Victorian government offices, particularly in Jakarta, in Singapore, and the soon to open one in Vietnam. He's done all the planning for that. He was the Commissioner for Southeast Asia for about 5 years and has now commenced his role as Commissioner for China. To give some insights and some input into his role and to the offices that he looks after, I'll now pass over to Brett Stevens. Brett, over to you.
Thanks, George. Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for attending today's Fashion and E-commerce in China webinar. So as we've just heard, we're going to hear from our speakers today about the differences between the Australian and Chinese retail industry and some of the opportunities available for Victorian designers and producers in fashion and e-commerce. Now, I'm part of Global Victoria's international network, consisting of 23 offices around the world, and we're here to help you and other Victorians capture some of these opportunities. Our team in China is spread across 5 cities, including Shanghai, where I'm based, Beijing, Nanjing, Chengdu, and Hong Kong. And in each of these offices, we have dedicated trade managers who can help you meet with partners, importers, distributors, and platforms to bring your designs to consumers around the world. Now, Melbourne is well known as the fashion capital of Australia, with major international fashion events like the Virgin Australia Melbourne Fashion Festival, the Spring Racing Carnival, Fashion Stakes, and a host of high-end boutique designers. Many of our designers, like 2 of today's speakers, Katie Pratt and DIIDA Papafotiou, are already exporting beautiful Melbourne designs to the world, but for many on the webinar, today is the start of your export journey. And that's why it's my pleasure to introduce you to our first speaker, Miss Amy Fan, who's the CEO and founder of Fashion Zoo. Amy and Fashion Zoo are developing a trend-led community for millennials and Generation Z, focusing on fashion, art, music, technology, and culture. Through Fashion Zoo, she is creating inspirational experiences aiming to build a new global product to bring East and West fashion culture closer together. Fashion Zoo work with domestic and international brands to help them enter the China market through digital marketing and the use of KOLs, all aimed at the millennials and Gen Z consumers. Now let's first watch a short video introduction of Fashion Zoo, and then we'll hear more in detail from Amy about the fashion industry in China and how international brands can make their mark here in China. Let's watch the video now.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Amy Fan, the CEO of Fashion Zoo. Thanks for the invitation of Global Victoria. I'm delighted to join today's talk. So Fashion Zoo, actually, it is the first B2C fashion platform in China. Our mission is open the door of fashion to the consumers and promote the culture exchange from Western to Eastern world. The video is just showed the big event happening this year from the 3rd of September to 6th of September. Actually, we are the first such big scale fashion event of China. It's around 100 brands join us, and 70% are international brands like Stan McCartney, Karl Lagerfeld, and National Active, etc. We always have the shows, pop-ups, and fashion talks to provide entertainment experience of fashion and promote the fashion sensibilities. 2020, it's been the challenging year of all the world. However, so the challenges come to opportunities. Today, I would like to share some information and ideas of e-commerce consumer insights with China and importance of social media in Chinese market. So first, let's say the market size of young generation. So there are 400 million of young generation in China, include both millennials and Z generation. This number means that it's around 16.4% of millennials around the world came from China. It is 5 times US, 30 times UK. So absolutely, such young generation, especially people who born after 1990s, plays a big role at fashion retail market. Indeed, it looks like the virus does not affect the total retail spending of China. Because of the virus, the offline consumption has been reduced completely soon, especially for household products, fashion accessories, as well as beauty and makeup. But actually, the total retail sales revenue is keep growth from March of 2020, which means that the online consumption leads the trend. For the official report of growth rate of online retail, we can already get that the online consumption grows rapidly. For instance, from the data, we can see that use May of 2020 as comparison, as example. The sales of May 2020 is 120 billion more than 2019. So the young generation has become the main force of fashion and luxury goods consumption. It is amazing to see that in 2020, for the first time, more than half of consumption are under 30s. The contribution of their consumption has raised from 42% to 47%. So we can say that the people under 30 are very significant, especially from the second-tier cities. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about a little bit about the young generation behavior and actually the e-commerce insights. So we call the young generation in China global citizens, because they always suffering online to get all the information from the world. They all have the global vision. Normally, they can get the news online and shop the international goods at both online and offline, then post the photos, views, short videos on social media platforms, and leading the online spread to affect more people, and finally to achieve the word of mouth marketing on social media and help brands grow in Chinese market. Yeah, because the young generation are super active on social media platforms, so the social media influence in recent 3 years in China became to the most important part for the brands to be survived in China. From the official data report, we can get that around 80% consumers think that the impact that brands have had on the social media will affect their decision on the purchase. So we do believe that the young generation leads a market trend. And we believe the fashion industry model should be the C2B, it's not B2C anymore, which means that the young generation on the social media directs the market more, especially the Z generation who born after 1995. They actually they don't just like the big name brand, but the brand with cool labels, factors, art style, unique quality standards with reasonable price, gonna be more attractive for them. So this is actually the young generation insights in China. So finally, I'm gonna talk about the role of KOLs in promoting fashion labels. So we do think that the KOL is not, because the KOL is not only can improve the social media influence, but also it is one of the sales channel to brands. Recently, independent designers brands pay more and more attention to KOL marketing, quickly occupy the market through the flexible use of KOL and KOC. So KOL, I think everybody know that, it's key opinion leader. But the hating word of KOC is key opinion consumer, that's who are active on social platforms and has their own fans and followers. So to use good of the combination of KOL and KOC will give more attraction to consumers and bring the emotion benefits to the customers. So the KOLs is more targeted to attract traffic, raise the brand awareness, and grow on consumers. And the KOC is a fast spreading and is high credibility to consumers, actually. So then I'm gonna talk about the social digital marketing. So in 2020, actually for some brands, the live broadcast plus the sales commission becomes the mainstream for the retail, especially after the March of 2020, after the virus. Normally for the brands, they are fresh new to the Chinese market in early stage of development. Some pay attention to transformation and mainly rely on the e-commerce platforms, which are JD.com and Taobao. The cooperation way will be the live broadcast plus the sales commission. But for the medium to long-term vision, marketing requires new media platforms such as Weibo, Sina, Douyin, Chinese TikTok, Xiaohongshu, Red to increase the social influence. spread the brand story, and eventually to bring more transformations. This could be work with KOL and KOC, like post short video, share comments at social media platforms, and therefore grow on users and consumers. Yeah, it's all about my ideas and share about e-commerce insights and the importance of digital marketing in China. And actually the young generation became to the very important role of the fashion market. So lastly, I'm gonna share my own opinions. I think the niche brand will be more popular in the future of China. The new brand and the brand that just entered China with a good quality and a reasonable price will be super popular for the young generation in the future market. So I do believe that there are going to be the huge market opportunities for the Australia brand. It's like organic makeup, skincare, accessories, and pajamas, underwear. Of course, the signature activewear and the swimwear gonna be really good opportunity in China. So yeah, that's it. It's all my today's share. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Amy. That was fantastic. There's actually a lot of information in that presentation, and this presentation will be made available to all participants. We might actually look into some of that content through some of the questions later on, particularly when you talk about the niche opportunities and showcasing, you know, the less known brands into a market like China. Thank you very much. Our next speaker is no stranger to global Victoria. Katie Pratt is the founder and creative director of Elliatt and of Global Lifestyle Distributors. Katie has taken Elliatt brand to a number of international markets, and that includes China. She's participated in Global Victoria's runway as part of what used to be called the Virgin Australia Melbourne Fashion Festival, which is now the Melbourne Fashion Festival, of course, and has continually made herself available to share her experience of being a local brand taking on the world. Katie has a fascinating story on her engagement with China, and she has agreed to share it with all of us today. Katie has undertaken a considerable amount of work with key opinion leaders in China, and today she'll start showcasing, will continue to showcase some of that work that she's been doing, and also talk about this new project on supporting companies looking to access the China market. Katie, over to you.
Thanks, George. Thanks for having me here today. It's really exciting to be doing a presentation and getting back into it. I just thought I'd start with a really quick recap of Elliatt, who we are, what we do, and I guess the kind of reason, well, the things that we did prior to launching in China that I think are kind of good for a foundation to think about, you know, for those brands wanting to take on China, thinking about other moves prior. So, you know, we're a feminine brand, you know, we're bold, we're colourful, we do focus on occasion wear, but as we've grown into various international markets, we've also grown, our collections have grown to, you know, much more kind of ready to wear, full collections and diverse collections to cater for all those different markets. You know, on this screen here, you can see some of our major partners that we work with and have worked with over the years. And, you know, some of these key, you know, iconic department stores and online e-commerce stores, I think being in those doors have helped us launch into China many years ago, when we launched 5 years ago into China. So I think, you know, trying to, you know, get in the doors of well-known, reputable retailers, whether that's online or, you know, traditional department stores, is always a great thing to start with when approaching the market. Next slide, if possible. And, you know, we also focused before we went into China on other international markets first, the US, UK and Europe, kind of, you know, launching a presence there. US was very established for us before we went into China. And, you know, obviously when we launched in China, our buyers really loved the idea that we're an Australian designed brand, and we use that as a marketing pitch along the way. However, I think what, you know, buyers also loved and trusted was the fact that we were established also in the United States. And we had showcased our brand on, New York Fashion Week platforms, Vamp a number of times, Mercedes-Benz Fashion Week in Sydney, those kind of platforms, and that imagery and that story and history the brand had been through, I think, helped as well. So all these little things that you can do in other markets, I think really do help when you go to launch in China. Next slide, please. I just wanted to talk about, it's a complex market, China, as we're probably all aware, and it, is very different to Australia. So trying to summarise exactly how we sell there and how we get our product to market, I've tried to, simplify it as much as possible on this slide here. So in the first couple of years, we launched in China around 2015, and we launched as, a traditional showroom selling trade. So selling to buyers of stores and online platforms in a traditional showroom setting, B2B wholesale distribution. And that was initially our biggest kind of route to market. And it still is our biggest and most profitable route to market. It's a safe route because we've established a really kind of loyal network of about 400 buyers that come to those showrooms and buy from us. But once that was established, we moved into retail, and that really helped, give us another, element of marketing and brand awareness to consumers, and supported the wholesale side of our business. And then finally, in the last 2 years in China, we've really seen the growth of live stream sessions. And that live stream sales session, we have those sessions happen in our showroom in Melbourne, in our showroom in Sydney, and our showrooms in China, and in our retail stores too. So we've developed a really great network of KOLs that can come in and basically live stream and sell to their consumers within those, showrooms. Next slide, please. Yeah. We've been, working on PR and marketing in China for 5 years now. And so, we're constantly getting a constant stream of KOLs featuring our product every month. And these are more traditional kind of actresses and celebrities, and they still obviously have a relevance in the KOL market, but they're known as actresses, and I would call, 2 of them A-list actresses in China. And I just wanted to highlight, these are probably 3 key actresses that we've had our product worn on, and we obviously saw direct sales of those items when they wore it, but these 3 have actually left a long-term legacy for our brand over the years and brought buyers to us and a lot more brand awareness. So it is a more traditional approach, having, dressing celebrities for red carpet and events and that kind of thing. But I still do feel it's actually given us a good impact and good brand awareness in China. So not to kind of disregard that and always, look just towards the KOLs. But yeah, like the traditional kind of dressing as well has been very successful for us over the years. Next slide. And then I just wanted to, Amy actually already touched on this, but I just wanted to recap the 3 kind of social media platforms that are most relevant for us, and that, if you were thinking about going into the China market to probably focus on initially is Red and Weibo and WeChat. So obviously we use these to create content that's relevant to the Chinese market and post our own content. But we also then reshare all the content that the KOLs share on their platforms that they have on Red and Weibo and WeChat. So we use it for our own content creation and then also resharing. And I think, having a strong, consistent presence on these platforms as a brand is really important to, look authentic, committed to the market, and really kind of grow that brand awareness. Next slide, please. And that gets me to something that we launched earlier this year. It's kind of been years in the making. Over the years, we've had a few brands reach out to us asking for assistance and help in the China market because we have had quite solid growth as an Australian brand there. So we've always wanted to kind of, offer something to support those brands that are wanting to go into that market. And with COVID and having a little bit more time on our hands, and also actually having a a moment there where there was no factories or supplies coming out of China for the first couple of months of the year because of the shutdowns. We found that the Chinese market, when it started reopening after COVID, it was quite hungry for product, and they were looking for more stock from Australia. And so that kind of was the launch of Global Lifestyle Distributors. And it's, you know, we've kind of put together our teams on the ground in Beijing and Shanghai, and then also our teams here in Melbourne and Sydney, and been able to put together a full service for brands that they can choose the elements that they require. But, you know, anywhere from managing their social media accounts in China, so it's very relevant to the Chinese consumers, you know, organising KOL and celebrity placements through our PR team over there, you know, putting on events for them. We've had experience with a number of events in China. Obviously, our strongest component, and the component that actually sees brands get direct sales, is our showroom and wholesale distribution services. So, you know, having our buying network come to the showrooms, view product and be able to purchase it in volume is a really big component of our offering. And then also, obviously, working with KOL live streamers to help also sell via that live stream route. And this is just a couple of images of one of our stores and the branding outside that we've got of it, a showroom that we've got set up, and also some brands that we are working with currently to help them get into the China market and grow Australian brands. And then lastly, I just wanted to show you something that we're very proud of with our the launch of Global Lifestyle Distributors this year. We had our first event in August on the Bund in Shanghai on a rooftop there. We had a kind of pop-up runway. We invited our entire buying network and, you know, our KOL network as well. And it was a really good event, and it successfully showcased the product. And we were really proud of that kind of being coordinated and happening, considering we were here in lockdown. So I just wanted to end on that.
On video.
Thank you very much, Katie. That was very insightful. And once again, there's a lot of content there, which we will sort of see if we can break that down a bit further through some of the questions as they keep rolling through. Just a reminder, if you do have questions, send them through on the chat function, as some of you have been doing up to now. I guess one of the standouts from today's presentation is the contrast in models which are being used to engage in the China market with, particularly between Katie and DIIDA today. They're two very different examples of how to engage with KOLs in the China market. We're looking at, you know, one that has, in Katie's example, very sophisticated, very engaged in a number of international markets. We're now going to hear from DIIDA. And DIIDA, she's the founder and creator of the brand DIIDA. It has two retail stores. There's one in High Street Armadale and one in the Emporium in Melbourne. Global Victoria first came across DIIDA as part of the 2020 Virgin Australia Melbourne Fashion Festival, in which she was one of the designers, chosen designers for the Global Victoria runway. At the time when we first met DIIDA, she was fascinated to learn about, you know, the China market and the role of influencers and KOLs and their buying patterns. It was clear that she had a real appetite to learn more about it, and particularly with her store based in the Emporium. Her story is about that experience, and you know, she's going to give some insights into that her perspective on the world of KOLs and how she actually developed that. it was roughly around 12 months ago that me and my colleague Song Lei sat down with DIIDA and started talking to her about, the China market and KOLs. And it would be fair to say that at that stage, she had no engagement with the China market. So we're really glad that, 12 months on, we're able to get some insights into how she has progressed in terms of her engagement in China, what it looked like, her experience and her reflections on that. So we really do look forward to hearing about this, DIIDA. Over to you.
Thanks, George, and hello to all my viewers. So pretty much, as George mentioned, I engaged with George and Global Victoria about 12 months ago, and I actually can't believe how quickly the time's gone, and just now coming out of lockdown. So pretty much what we found is, we can go to the next slide, is pretty much I want to take you through the history and the timeline and sort of how it all happened with me. As George mentioned, I pretty much had no idea of what KOLs were, who they were and what they were about. And I was introduced to Global Victoria and George and his team through VAMP. So I showcased in Runway for a few years, and Global Victoria was having a runway, and they were showcasing key Australian designers, specifically from Melbourne, and I was one of the labels that had been contacted. And just to give you a brief overview, DIIDA is 100% made in Melbourne, and we've got 2 stores, bricks and mortar stores here, and hence that was quite, we felt like it was the right collaboration for us to come together, and potentially some opportunities that Global Victoria could have. So pretty much, I guess the next step was that Global Victoria really educated me in information about China. If we could just move back to the previous slide. Yep, stay on that one. And pretty much what they did is they educated me. They informed me about KOLs, which it was so interesting. I had no idea whatsoever, and didn't realise there was this big opportunity for Australian labels. And pretty much what I learnt coming out of that meeting was that I could run both my bricks and mortar stores parallel to international opportunities at the same time. And it probably wasn't as hard as what I anticipated. So KOLs being the key opinion leaders. Then pretty much, I guess the next thing was, which was fantastic, leading up to Virgin Fashion Festival, Global Victoria actually made the first introduction to some key influencers, and one of them is called Elliatt. And what was great was we had a meeting just before Runway, and we had a few meetings, and George came and also one of his other colleagues, which was really great. And then pretty much the next steps in developing that relationship came after the Runway. So we'll go to the next slide. And pretty much, I probably have to say, we engaged in a collaboration with Elliatt after multiple meetings. And I guess probably the key opportunities, and George briefly mentioned this, and so did Amy, talking about what these Chinese customers want and what's the opportunities and why they want to engage with you and collaborate with you and sell your product. And probably one of the most important things is, which was relayed from themselves, was the brand needs to have a unique selling point. So, for example, DIIDA was made in Melbourne, and we're also Melbourne based, and we're looking to expand. So we don't have a massive footprint, so we're kind of still quite unique. Also, desirability of the product. So what other things are desirable about it? 80% of our product is European fabric. So again, it's desirable again. So it's made in Melbourne, European fabric. So it's quite different. So it makes people want to purchase the product. And this is what Elliatt were looking for. And I guess probably the next key thing is relationship building. I find that, the Chinese are a bit like Europeans. It's all about maintaining really good relationships. You have to keep the communication up. You need to ensure that you communicate with each other about what they need and also what you have in the business, because sometimes you may not have what they need initially in the beginning, but you're learning from each other, and then the sales increase and so do opportunities. So next Next slide. And the last thing I've got to contribute is just what to expect on the day of the live streaming with KOL. So I didn't know what to expect. So I'd still heard everything about it. So it was quite new to me. And pretty much this team comes into your boutique, and what they do is they love to either live stream from your store because it gets but if you don't have a store, or from a showroom that has the feeling and can give a kind of an idea of what the brand's about, or, you know, the fixtures and the shop fit out and just the merchandising. So location is really important for them. And they pretty much come with 3 staff from their business. And this consists of 2 people, usually 1 to 2 people who are trying on the product. There's someone sitting behind a live stream with just an iPhone, which is, I know it sounds crazy, and it's a live streaming, and there are people, 2 females who are changing, and they're doing costume changes. So they're constantly walking in and out, and they're just chatting. So, and obviously you're not understanding, they're speaking Chinese, so you can't understand what they're saying, but it's quite fast, everything that's happening. And they're talking about the product, the price, and then they'll ask questions to either myself or the staff, of just additional things like fit, additional colorways, and how much stock we've got. And then they've got another staff member who is sitting there taking live orders coming through, it's quite fascinating. It all happens really instantly. So a great way to make instant sales. And then the next thing is, if I take you through, just to give you a bit of an idea, it's just a short snippet of the video, but pretty much what's great about this is you actually come in, and within 12 to 24 hours, you've literally had multiple sales for the day. It's tried on, live streaming, you pack it up and it's gone, and you've had your purchase come through. So it's quite a fascinating opportunity and something to go through for a business. And it's been fantastic for us. So you might have a few more questions, but I'll take you through this tiny little snippet and hopefully you can get an idea. Video, please.
I should just add just a little bit more to DIIDA's presentation. When she talked about the KOL that Global Victoria was working with, just to give a bit more background to how that came to be, we work very closely with Alibaba, which is one of the largest platforms in China, and they have an office in Melbourne. So we worked with their network of key opinion leaders around Australia. These KOLs, they understand their consumers very well. Their customers, they understand very well. So although we may put brands or particular companies forward, at the end of the day, it's always the KOL that informs us whether a brand would be appropriate for their clientele. And we only can respond to what they tell us. And this is really critical. The time that we went back to DIIDA, we had already spoken to the KOL, and they had already indicated that they were interested in meeting with the brand. So they have a very good understanding of the style, the look, the feel of the brand. And how it may complement their customer base. So it's not a matter of we'll just find a KOL and we'll use that. It's about developing a relationship, and it has to be a fit. And in this instance, together with the retail outlet in central Melbourne was quite critical to that. So I just thought I'd add that in, because I know what will happen. We'll get a whole lot of questions going, well, I want exactly the same thing. And to DIIDA's credit, she did do a lot of work, and she had a real appetite to wanting to learn more about it. And for us to support her in driving that made that a lot easier. Now, I have a number of questions that are coming in, and I'm quickly just going to see if I can churn through these. First question, and maybe I'll just go around to a few of the speakers. We're talking about a budget. One of the questions is, we're a small business, relatively have to be quite nimble. If we wanted to do a launch in the China market, what sort of budget are we looking at to do something like this? Katie, I might start with you. What would be some of the insights that you would provide in terms of a smaller designer looking to engage in the China market and engaging with KOLs?
Yeah, I can tell you, when we first started, obviously we didn't have the in-house team that we have now and our own resources. We were outsourcing teams and contractors to do it. So at the beginning, we were very much the same 5 years ago. We wanted to do it on a budget and we wanted to see return on our investment immediately. So I think, initially 5 years ago, we were probably paying a couple of PR companies and a couple of distributors, certain monthly retainers, but we were kind of instantly receiving sales, because we were selling via seasons. So it took probably about 6 months for us to actually then have the money come in. But, I think initially we launched on retainers of around $4,000 a month. Our costs are a lot higher now with the resources we've set up, and but we can warrant that with the market share and the sales that we now receive in the China market. But it's a double-edged sword, because you obviously need to have that PR backup and the social media and that kind of support to help get the buyers on board to actually then place the orders, because you kind of can't have one without the other.
Right. All right. Amy, from your base in Shanghai, what sort of budget do you think? How would you approach companies when they approach you asking, well, what am I going to get what bang am I going to get for my buck? How much money do I need to have an impact?
Sorry. Okay. Can you hear me? Sorry. Okay. I think it's very difficult to give the exact budget, but I will give some suggestions, because the fresh brand enters China. There's going to be a lot of B2B platforms. It's like showrooms, whatever the fashion zone. We have the Shanghai Fashion Week, and the label. We have the DFO and the other 食堂, like some showrooms. So get some B2B networks, and to make sure you have the revenue generation and the cash flow. And then if you want to open the 2C to directly face to the customers, I do recommend in the My Speech, there should be the live stream plus the sales commission. So maybe to test the market, because live streaming is really, the mainstream of China to open the retail market. So normally it's going to be whatever JD.com or the Taobao. You work with a famous KOL, and if you have nice design with a good reasonable price, and it's going to be 20 to 50,000 RMB per link, per SKU, and plus maybe 20 to 25% commission. So, and if you're looking for the continuous or sustainable PR agency to work with to seeding KOLs, have some post, it's going to be from 10,000 to 30,000 RMB range. So it means that you're going to get maybe 10 to 20 KOL work with, seeding them, and maybe they're going to bring some media in placement as well. Right.
So in terms of, there are various tiers of KOLs, as you outlined in your presentation. Can you be, for example, geographically focused on particular KOLs, where you just work with ones because it may be focused on a tier 2 city, to start off with in somewhere like China, understand how it works, become more familiar with, how the KOL world works, and then grow from that, and that way the investment wouldn't be as significant if you were to go for a tier 1 city or multiple cities where a KOL may have more followers. Is such a strategy worth considering?
Yeah, it's actually, China is so big, and we have such huge population, and we have a lot of KOL as well. But for sure, if you're looking for the T2C, I'm gonna a famous lady Weya as example. I don't know you know it or not. They are the top 1 sales KOL on Taobao. So But if your brands actually work with them, it's also have the I want to explain the process. So it's not means okay, I have budget, I can work with the KOL. So if you want to expect the high sales revenue and good feedback, you want to cooperate with the really famous or good KOL. It's not only about budget. It also depends on the your brand. What's your story behind? Do you have any reputation in the world in fashion industry? So if their team does things like your product and your design, your brand gonna be work, so they're gonna work with you. So on this point, I think you can try from the different tiers. From the first tier KOL, and you can work with the PR agency to help the brands looking for different KOLs to try. So it's very difficult to say that. Of course, we're gonna try from the top one, but it's very difficult. Okay, I tried the small one with a mini, with the only little budget, but actually maybe, I don't know, because it really depends on customer behavior. So you never know what you're gonna get feedback. But if you work with the top tier KOLs, it's meant to make sure they have enough followers and you can touch amount of people in second time.
Great. All right. DIIDA, without going into the details about the actual, the amounts, how was it modelled in terms of how you engaged with your KOLs? How did that model, how did you set up that model for Old Stage, who you worked with?
So is this pretty much sort of going once we agree to the collaboration? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So you agree with the collaboration, you agree that you're a good fit. What was the model that they used in terms of, did they take a percentage of sales, for example? And, did they have a commission set up? What was the model for them to get their revenue from working with you?
Yeah, no, understood. Look, so pretty much, obviously, they do come in and do quite a bit of work, and I sort of acknowledge that on the day of live streaming. So pretty much how it works is KOLs are like sales agents. So imagine going to a sales agent and wholesaling your product. You sell your product at a wholesale price, and your sales agent takes a percentage. So the KOLs work like a sales agent model. So they'll take a percentage of the product. What's great is you generally, and I'm not too sure whether this is different with other KOLs, but I'm pretty sure it's quite similar, and maybe Kat can confirm that. Pretty much it's a larger amount on full price product, but when you're selling sale product, obviously because you are naturally as a retailer or a brand getting hit on the price, it's a smaller commission amount they take. They take on the cost of all shipping or postages, which is great because that can be quite expensive for a brand. And I guess it is, it could be, depending on who you engage with, it could be slightly the cost of the commission that you agree on with the KOL. And as a brand, you probably need to think to yourself as well, am I a wholesaler? Can I offer them a bit more and get them to come more regularly? And then the idea is, if you're turning through the product quickly and they've got more of an incentive, you'll find that they will push the product a lot more. So, but you also need to be mindful you don't give away too much, because you also need to maintain your margin. But for me, I'm finding it a lot more cost beneficial using KOLs than wholesaling my product to boutiques. So for myself, having had this opportunity, and as George mentioned, there is lots and lots of years of experience behind this. I just haven't 12 months ago started a brand and then got in contact with George. So there's been a lot of experience beforehand, and having had the experience of wholesale opportunities, the KOL opportunity initially, it requires a lot of work and learning, but the model is a lot more cost effective for a brand, for you to engage and work towards that. So, does that answer your question, George?
Yeah, no, that was very good. Thank you for that. Brett, you're looking pretty comfortable there, so I'm going to fire one to you, and you're going to love this one. Obviously, the relationship between Australia and China from a political level is going through a turbulent time. How is that going to impact for companies that are looking to undertake business through e-commerce? And do you have some insights or some guidance that you can provide companies in how to work in that current environment?
All right, thanks for that, George. It's always good for the tricky ones. Let me start with the current situation in terms of the political and diplomatic status. So this is something that's actually occurring at a national and federal level. So we basically defer to DFAT and the embassy for activities that are happening at that level. Where we specialise and where we can probably add the most amount of value, and certainly do, is actually at the transactional and the commercial trade investment level. And it's actually probably really best demonstrated by what we're doing today. A lot of the future that we're looking at the moment is absolutely going to be impacted by travel restrictions. No one really knows when international travel is going to open back up again. I'm not just talking about Australia, but I'm actually talking about global travel. And what we're going to see is this transition from very sort of traditional, jumping on a plane, going into the marketplace, or inviting guests down to Victoria and down to Melbourne to actually do activities as well. We're not going to be able to do that. So transitioning into digital formats, virtual reality type engagement, or this, even simply webinar type activity, this is where we're going to see a really strong growth in terms of the way that we're able to develop and explore new ways of engaging. So if I look at the China-Australia relationship, that's there. It's China continues to be an incredibly strong partner for Victoria. Victoria has great relationships here, and we look to take advantage of that really long-term establishment that we've had with China, and also look to help China engage with Victoria and Australia as well. So what we're really seeing is a push at the moment to help and develop further this use of DIIDA's comments there around KOLs and Amy, and everyone's talking about the KOLs at the moment. These are the sort of things that we'll be able to do digitally, and continue to do so I think in a really new and innovative way. So even though it's a little bit tricky at the moment, we're actually quite excited and quite optimistic around where the growth will be.
Thanks, Brett. And I think DIIDA touched on it before, and I think it comes through particularly with Katie's presentation, and I know through her experience, a lot is really based on relationships and developing that relationship. It doesn't come quickly. And I found through my observations that it's really critical to the success. I've got a question here that relates to companies that are currently on other online platforms, whether it be, Shopify or whatever it may be. And I know, Katie, you had a few of these sites on your presentation. Does that help? Are you able to leverage those sort of existing platforms that you use, let's say, in the Western countries into the China market? Can you leverage off that to approach the China market?
No, I haven't been able to discover how to do that. If anyone knows, let me know, because that would be amazing if we could just have our Shopify store in China. That would be the dream. But it's not quite that easy from what I've discovered anyway. I think it's, as I said, it's about, for us, if you want to open an e-com platform, you can have your own Tmall or Taobao store, but there is investment required behind that to launch that. It's quite considerable investment. Or you could open a Red store as well. Again, from the quotes we've had, very big investment capital behind to be able to get a platform up and running. So the model we are using, and that's helped us really grow, and it's worked in our favour, is actually being the supplier to stores that are already established on those platforms and already have a big following, and they become our customer and they buy volume product from us in big size packs, and they do pre-orders. It's a really safe model because it means that you can manufacture to order and you can make to order rather than sitting on a whole heap of stock that you own. And it means that you, instead of just selling via your own one store that you're responsible for marketing and promoting and have a lot of costs running, you can, sell to potentially 400, 500 different little platforms. So that's the model that, we've been working on and growing in the last 5 years, and really working on those relationships with all those buyers to be able to sell a lot of product directly into the market without having those massive overheads.
You raise a very interesting point, Katie, and it's actually come through in some of the questions. Once you get your head around, e-commerce in China, you come to the realization fairly quickly that there is just a lot of platforms. There is a lot of, even within the Alibaba world itself, there is, many platforms under that operate. And how does a company, particularly one that is starting on its journey in China, navigate its way on finding the platform that best reflects the needs of the company? Now, I will hear from you, Katie, on just your thoughts on that. But Amy, I'm going to go to you after that. I'm keen to get some thoughts and insights from you on that as well.
Well, yeah, for what's worked, I can only talk from our experience, and my experience is to try all of them via a third party first. Don't go and, sign your life away to one particular platform and, invest heavily in that. Try and, work out a route, build relationships, and work out a route where you can be the supplier to a lot of these platforms or KOLs or live stream, auction KOL people that can then sell the product for you. I think that's the best way of testing the market, the safest way. And then, as you grow, like for us, our next phase of growth and next 5-year plan will be to have our own platforms and launch them and roll out more stores, and not depend so much on those third parties. That's, the end goal eventually, but it does require, heavy investment, and it's something that we're kind of working towards over time, but it's not something that we would, do immediately.
Amy, any thoughts or observations that through, in terms of a company approaching the market and trying to work out which of the platforms would be best for them?
Okay. Actually, in China, we do have Alibaba, right? Everyone know that. But now we have more channels and more platforms, actually. We have, I think, for fashion, accessories and clothes, it's better work with Taobao and Tmall, and also TikTok. The Chinese TikTok just opens the store. You can have the link to sell your clothes, and when you do the video, you have the shows, and you can directly link the trolley. So I think TikTok and Alibaba, Tmall, and Taobao is going to be matched for the fashion, clothes, and accessories. But when we talk about the makeup or skincare, I think the little red book, Red, 小红书, is going to be perfect.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for that. Brett, you're really going to love me today. Here's another one, and this one's really obvious. It's the big elephant in the room. With the onset of COVID and companies not being able to travel, what is available for support for companies that want to engage in the China market? And as Brett thinks about an answer response to that, I guess it's also a good time to start thinking about the strategy that you've got in mind for the China market, understanding what your value proposition is, what you have. I mean, we're clearly heard from DIIDA and from Katie, who really understood their product quite well, and when the opportunity came, they could see how it fitted quite well with them. That's the strategy part. I'll hand over to you, Brett, just to give some thoughts on what companies can do in the current situation where travel's not allowed.
So I think the primary point of difference at the moment is simply the travel component. But the actual level of services and support that's available actually hasn't changed too much at all. If you're a Victorian company and you're looking to engage with China, you've got a whole team in Melbourne and Victoria that can assist you. So George's team and the rest of the trade team. And you can also take advantage of the 5 offices and the 20 plus staff that we have across the network, who are still able to be your feet on the ground and help you make those introductions and those meetings and provide you with all that market insight as well. In addition to that, as I mentioned before, we're also establishing this new economic recovery strategy, which is essentially looking at how we can provide support in a digital level, at a virtual level, assisting businesses to work around the restrictions that are in place there because they can't travel. So what does that mean? How do we actually now help people engage digitally? You're still able to send product. You're still able to get your products into the marketplace here. It's just that, and people can still travel as well. It's just that there's a few restrictions that come there. And as someone who's done a month's worth of quarantine myself recently, I don't recommend anyone comes up, does 2 weeks, and has to come back again if you can get a flight. But to answer the question, what can we do to help? It depends on who you are and what it is that you need. We've got a whole range of support that we can deliver, from the very smallest, you just want to meet someone or you just want to learn more about what the KOL can actually do for you, right through to how can we help you get your product, launch into a marketplace, get all the registrations done, really, high level, multifaceted engagement. So really take advantage of the support that's there, because this is why we have these offices. It's really to help the Victorian stakeholders.
Thanks for that, Brett. I'm just going to give a bit of background in terms of, I've got a question here about, a bit more background in terms of the KOL and how it was introduced to DIIDA. And, the company's asking, well, I'd love the same thing. As part of the fashion festival that we hosted earlier this year, Global Victoria, as I mentioned before, we work with partners such as Alibaba, who have an office here, and we worked with them in attracting the key opinion leaders from around Australia. So this was domestically, because if you can remember the beginning of this year, it was China that there was no international travel, and we weren't able to bring any internationals to Melbourne. So we had to rely on working with KOLs that were based in Australia. And we hosted them at the fashion festival. As you may have heard, we had a runway this year, and as part of that, we hosted them as guests. And as part of them coming down and attending the festival, we organised a business program for them. And as part of that business program, we went out and we showcased companies, and they decided which companies they would want to meet with, and we organised a program around that. That worked quite well, and it was a learning experience for us, because we had never really engaged with local KOLs before. But we would be keen to see how we could replicate that going forward, particularly in product categories such as fashion, beauty, healthcare, food and beverage, for example. They're categories that go quite well. Lifestyle products go quite well in e-commerce, cross-border e-commerce, into the China market. So That's how that came to be. I should also mention that Alibaba every year, and this is pre-COVID, of course, but every year they host a major expo alternating between Melbourne and Sydney, where they get product categories from across Australia and New Zealand. They bring them into one location and they reach out to their network of buyers, influencers, KOLs, and invite them down and showcase these influencers through this exhibition. Now, that is that is an easy way to engage with these KOLs. But once again, you've got to be the product category that's appropriate for the influencers. And unless you fit that criteria, it's very hard to engage with them. So I just say that as a note that it sounds wonderful, but at the end of the day, it's the influencers that need to decide that it's a product that's appropriate for them. And that worked quite well. I have another question here in regards to risk management. And the question is, well, let's say the KOL doesn't go well, and there are problems that are developing. How do you manage or make sure that you can manage that risk up front? What are some of the things to take into consideration when looking and working with these KOLs? Because for many of us, this is a new experience, right? And we're learning at this changing sort of way of consumerism in China. So what are some of the things that companies can do to prepare themselves for the risk? Amy, I'll start with you and get some of your thoughts on that.
Okay. Actually, this question, I think everything takes risk. But that I want to clarify that. When the brand work with a KOL, it's quite rarely depends on your expectation. If your expectation to sell the products, so you should work with the e-commerce platform and the KOL who do the live broadcasting can sell the products. But if you're looking for enhance the market position or open the Chinese market, you should do more and continuous more with the QM and the QC to grow on customers. What is grow on? Actually, it means that you seeding also different KOLs, you work with different QCs, the shake and the image and match to your brands to help you spread the brand story on the social media form. So once more and more people follow the KOLs, get the information, you're gonna be the popular and improve your brand recognition on the social media platform, and then everything will be go on. Otherwise, it's really difficult to survive in the Chinese market, especially for fashion industry. It's quite different with the skincare or makeup. So for the clothes and accessories, you should have the brand recognition first, and the people are gonna get to know you first, and then you're gonna improve your sales and to be survived in the Chinese market. So I think it's quite depends on the once you open the cooperation or collaboration with the platforms or PR agency. So please keep your expectation step by step. If the first month you expect for sales, I think nobody can get that. Maybe you are, I think it's more always testing water and set up and enhance your brand recognition in the Chinese market, especially for the young generation. And then you're gonna improve your sales on the next step. So it's quite my opinion. So it's not means in the first maybe the half years you don't get really good feedback on the sales. It means that you gone and you take risk. No, because it takes time to set up the brand awareness on social media platform. So this is my opinion.
Thank you, Amy. So on top of relationships, I guess time is another issue that you need to take into consideration, and then investment of time. Katie, with the work that you've done with KOLs, and there are a number of them, have you come across one that didn't work out? and how was that managed?
Well, before I kind of give an example, I'll just say what's really worked for us in China is having really clear contracts when you're working with KOLs or PR firms, and having, really clear contracts that outline your goals and expectations, and, how many KOLs you expect wearing your product every month, and at what level they should be. And really clear contracts really help, stomp out any disappointment. And also setting up terms with KOLs that works in a way that it is, commission-based. So, it is the more product that is sold, the more the KOL earns, can be a really good way of risk managing too. So if a KOL features you, but then you don't sell any product, you still don't have to pay anything. So there are definitely always creative ways and it's not always you're able to do that with all KOLs, but some will work that way. And I mean, for us, we've just always had a constant stream of KOLs every month, because we've either had our own in-house PR teams or our external contracted PR teams over the years. And we've always had a constant stream and a commitment that, every month there will be KOLs that match our brand that, are at plus more than 1 million reach in terms of followings. And that's been our kind of organic growth. And then what we've gone out on top of that and done and reached out to KOLs that we can collaborate more personally with and create something more authentic and meaningful. And over the years, we've worked with quite a few KOLs in China where they'll come in and co-design a collection with us and have their stamp on it. And then they'll, do editorial shoots in it, and they'll really spruik it to the Chinese consumer. And that means that part of our collection, because we're here designing in Australia, can actually become more relevant for the Chinese consumer as well and more meaningful. And then, there've been the times where we have done a big collaboration like that over the years and the sales haven't met expectation, and it's awkward and it's disappointing because a lot of people put in work, but you always learn, and you learn, okay, well, that particular KOL, let's look at their demographic and their followers really closely and try and understand why that didn't resonate and match our brand and kind of execute well. And let's never go down that kind of path again. I think, and luckily because we had set up a lot of those collaboration as commission-based collaborations, there was not too much loss there and hurt at the end of it all,
Katie, just one quick follow-up question, because I know we're running out of time. Is there a way that you validated those KOLs or checked on their, credentials? How did you do that? What process did you follow?
Well, I think you look across all their social media platforms really closely. We always like to work with Chinese KOLs that also have Instagram platforms, because, our other regions actually follow Instagram, and Instagram is, the main social platform tool for us used in Australia, US, UK and Europe. So if they also then have a presence there, plus on the other 3 social platforms I mentioned, Red, Weibo, WeChat, and then you look at their engagement. So you don't just look at how many followers they've got. So they might have 1 million followers. That's great. But are their followers highly engaged? Are their followers liking all their posts? Are their followers commenting on their posts? Are their posts gaining a lot of traction? And also let's backtrack in the history of this KOL and let's see what other brands has this KOL represented and worked with? Are they brands like ours? Are they quality brands? Do we want to be kind of seen sitting alongside those other brands? So there's certainly, many ways you can kind of sense check them and look at the data in terms of all their posts and engagement levels. And also relationships. If you're going to do something that's like a meaningful engagement, it's not just them wearing you once and, tagging your name. It's them kind of working closely with your team to almost become like a brand ambassador. And I think, working with them closely for a number of months before, executing the the campaign is amazing to get to know each other, make sure that, you know, you can work together before signing contracts, building that relationship. A lot of the KOLs that we've worked with, you know, at certain periods of being able to meet up with them in New York when we've been doing New York Fashion Week, or, you know, we've been in Shanghai launching a store, and we were able to kind of meet them in person. You know, we've had 3 KOLs now that we've flown out to Australia and done things here on the ground in Australia with, before then proceeding to the next steps over in China. So I think, you know, also getting to know them, and can we work together? Do we have, you know, a good kind of collaborative working thing going on, style going on?
Thank you very much, Katie. That's, once again, it's that relationship developing and nurturing that relationship. Now, we've run out of time. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get through all the questions. And they just keep coming through. Obviously, there's a lot of interest in this, so that's been fantastic. I would like to thank our speakers today, Brett, Amy, Katie, and DIIDA. Thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated. Thanks to COVID, we would normally do this at a particular at a venue, and we wouldn't have the likes of Brett and Amy join us. But, well, let's face it, thanks to COVID, we're able to get them involved in the conversation. And I think it adds another level of knowledge and depth to this whole conversation. So thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to acknowledge the work of Lizzie Moffat for organising today's session. Thank you very much, Lizzie. I have been talking about China in this briefing. I'm no expert on China. I owe that all to my my trusted colleague Song Lei. Thank you very much, Song. And if anyone on the call today would like to have a further discussion on the China market, please let us know. Please reach out. As I said, the presentation will be made available, so you'll have the contact details of Global Victoria. And just a reminder that we also have a Victorian e-commerce briefing this Friday at 9 a.m. It's looking at the UK beauty and personal care market for e-commerce. For more information, go to the Global Victoria website and look up upcoming events. But till then, a big thank you to everyone, particularly our speakers, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you. Goodbye.